All right, let's get started. So welcome everyone to the Donut Hustle. My name is Dan Bertelson and I'm speaking so fast because I want this video to be quick and concise. Normally at the Donut Hustle, we create content that is more geared towards the entrepreneur. We try and have some motivational, educational, or just flat out entertaining content on latest topics and the hustle and grind. But today I wanted to do a very quick, concise video on how to get a job in law enforcement in 2025, if that's what you want. I do have 20 years of law enforcement experience under my belt. I no longer am working in law enforcement in any capacity, but I did do, 20 years in law enforcement. I applied with 3 agencies, differing in size and in different states, and I was successfully given job offers by all 3. During my career, I actually worked for 2 of those agencies. One of them, I decided it was a city, and the agency was fantastic. I just didn't want to necessarily move to the particular city and state at that time in my life. So it was a personal decision. But anyhow, just so you have a little bit of reference, so that agency I applied with was over 3,000 sworn members. The agency I first worked for, smaller, was a sheriff's office with 170 sworn members, and the agency I put the most time in with was an agency of 700 plus sworn members. So that gives you kind of an idea of, and again, all in different states. So I feel like my experience with the application process and the interview process is probably relevant in this video, and I hope to give you something helpful or some insightful comments that may help you in your search for a law enforcement career. So let's get started. The first question I'm going to ask you is why? Why do you want to be in law enforcement? Well, what is it about law enforcement that you want to be there? And, I could go into all the different good answers and bad answers. I'm not going to do that. Whatever your answers are your answers, but you should probably keep in mind that this profession, and I'm not saying this as a negative, I'm just saying this as a truism. This profession will take from you more than it will ever give. So it's going to give you compensation, right? You're going to get a great benefits package, hopefully, and a decent pay. You're going to have incredible experiences that very few other people get to experience. And it's going to give you an education. It's going to give you great health care, right? It's going to give you all those things. But I'm just telling you right now that mentally, physically, and emotionally, it's going to take more from you than it ultimately is going to give. And you need to know that going into it. I'm not trying to discourage. I'm just being real. All right. So that leads me back to the question of why. Why do you want to do this? It's 2025. Political changes. There's been a lot of dynamic changes in law enforcement, and I would argue to say that the last 5 to 10 years of shifts in law enforcement have not necessarily been positive ones. All right. That's why record numbers of police officers are leaving the job, and the recruiters are saying, hey, we've never seen recruitment this low. We can't get people to do this job. And it's because a lot of it is coming from the media and how they warp perspective. It's coming from these liberal leaders that are coming into power, and they're making these crazy policies that make policing completely impossible. I mean, now you're being asked, the same as you've always been asked as a police officer, to make these, moment life-threatening decisions, and no matter what you do, it's wrong. And not only is it wrong, but we're going to hit you with punitive actions, and we're going to maybe incarcerate you, or we're going to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines. And so again, why do you want to do this job? For some, it's a passion, a calling. For some, it's in the blood. Everyone in their whole lineage, all the way back to Wyatt Earp, has been in this job. Okay, I get it. I'm not going to try and discourage you. It still can be an incredible career. I don't look back on mine with any regret. I love my career, and I'm still friends with all my colleagues, and I have nothing but love for the men and women in blue. But I do feel like I need to at least throw up some cautionary flags to educate and say, hey, things to think about. All right. So now I'm going to get into it. I'm going to go very, very fast. I'm going to talk like a speed freak, right? Because I don't want this video to go long. So jot down notes, watch the video twice, whatever you got to do. Let me get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. I do have to mention our wonderful sponsor, 180vault.com. So your data is your business. Keep it that way. Invest in your privacy at 180vault. Encrypted email and cloud storage. Total digital protection for pennies a day, 180vault.com. To kind of hit every little point, but I'm going to go quick. So these are questions you need to be asking yourself and asking the members of that department, asking the recruiters and asking the officers. Even civilians work for that department, right? They might not have all the same answers, but ask the questions. What's the work environment like? This is a consideration. What's the work environment like, and the culture, right? What is the culture of the department? Is it a culture that meshes with what you want to become? Because whatever that culture is, you will become. All right, keep that in mind. What is the culture of the city or the county in which you're going to be serving? Right? And larger cities have different areas, different neighborhoods, different, we call them districts. Other agencies call them precincts. But what beat are you going to work within that district, right? Because the pie gets cut down smaller and smaller. It's like, hey, you need to investigate this. And you're saying, okay, well, how do I do that, right? Ride-alongs. Go on as many ride-alongs as they will allow, and not with the same officer. Different officers, different shifts, different beats, different areas of the city, right? Day shift, mid shift, graveyards, whatever. Every agency has different rules on ride-alongs, but almost all of them allow them. So go on ride-alongs, letting them know that you are looking at a potential career in law enforcement, right? You're not just some concerned citizen, right? You're looking at a career in law enforcement, and you want to get to know the ins and outs. And then, be respectful to whoever you're riding around with, because nobody wants to have someone strapped to their hip during, their 10-hour day, right? And certainly don't want to be responsible for that person's safety on top of their own. So it is stressful for the officer you're riding along with. So keep that in mind. But do as many ride-alongs as you can. And again, diversify with the ride-alongs and ask the questions. And here's some of the questions you need to be talking about. What's the work environment like, and the culture, right? That's a direct question you need to be asking. What kind of shifts do they work? Is it 410s, 5/8s, or 312 modified, right? How long did it take for that officer to get weekends off, or a day shift, or promotional opportunities? Do they have promotional opportunities, and how long does it really take? If you go ask a recruiter, hey, I really want to be a detective, right? How long is it going to take for me to be detective? Their answer might be, oh, well, you can apply to be detective in 3 years. After, you'll be a patrolman for 3 years, and then you'll go to detective. But then you go ask someone on a ride-along that actually works there, boots on the ground, that's not getting asked to sell the department, and they may say, oh man, it's really going to honestly take 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, right? You need to know that. You need to know going in. Or they may even say, you know what, Detective Bureau has a real deficit right now. You could probably maybe like 2 years, and you could get right into detective. So it's worth the question. All right. What is the compensation package? You got to ask that, obviously. What's the annual pay? What's overtime opportunities like, right? Are there off-duty opportunities? And off-duty is like, hey, are there venues for me to go work? Are you working in Vegas, where there's an endless amount of venues that you can work off-duty, where those venues actually hire you to work when you're not on shift, and they pay significantly higher than what you're getting paid, and it's a great way to supplement your income. I know some officers do a ton of it, and it literally, doubles their income or more. I mean, it's ridiculous what you can get paid off duty in with some agencies. Some agencies are more restrictive, and some agencies, just based on where they are geographically, don't have. If you're out in the middle of northern Idaho, there's probably not a lot of major events and venues happening. I don't know. My apologies to northern Idaho if there's major events there, but off-duty, something to think about. Are they paying for language if you speak another language? Are they offering tuition reimbursement? You may want to expand your career, or you may want to, rank up, and it may require college degrees. You may want to actually maybe do this for a while, get a degree, and then segue into something else. You want to know if tuition reimbursement's on the table. That's a huge one. Retirement. You need to Google this if you don't know what it means. Defined benefit or defined contribution. What do they offer? What type of, is it a pension or is it retirement, right? There's a difference. Generally, pension is defined benefit. You put in so many years, this is what you get. It's not higher, it's not lower. This is what you get. You need to know. And if you're some 20-year-old, kid, you're probably the last thing you're thinking about is retirement. But I'm telling you, it sneaks up on you. And if it's defined contribution, it's how much they're taking out of your check. It's mandatory. And then you got to find out, does the city match? Does the city pay anything? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's basically like a 401k. They call it a 401a or a 457b or some other designator. You need to know what that is. And you need to know, I guess the difference is between the two, because you may put in 30 years and the market tanks if you're in a defined contribution because it's market regulated, whereas the pension plan usually isn't as much, right? I mean, all money is somewhat market regulated, but if the U.S. economy goes in the toilet and the Dow goes in the toilet, right? The market goes in the toilet. I have seen officers that were preparing to retire and they had to wait 6 to 8 years for the market to recover because they couldn't afford to retire because all of a sudden the value of their retirement fund plummeted. So something to keep in mind. All right, equipment. Do they offer the latest in equipment? Right, technology is going to keep you alive and is going to make your job easier. Are they technology forward or are they technology backwards? Right, and then what are you allowed to buy if you have to buy it? Right, can you go out and buy a rifle if you get the proper training and everything? Can you carry a rifle, or do they have rifle certification and do they provide a rifle? Do they provide ballistic plates? Do they provide bulletproof vests? There's some agencies that you still have to buy your own vest. That's $1,400, right? Do you have to buy your own boots and your own leather, right? Boots, $200. You go through those every couple years. Your leather belts, couple $100, and holsters and everything else. The whole leather setup can be, $500-$600 when you're all said and done. Consideration, right? These are questions you need to ask. You need to be asking, probably the number one thing that you need to be asking and educating yourself is qualified immunity. 20 years ago, this would have never come up. Everyone had qualified immunity. There are jurisdictions now that do not have qualified immunity, and I'm telling you, it's no different than a plumber or a surgeon trying to go out and do surgery or a huge retrofit of plumbing on a building. You cannot do it without some type of protection from liability, because if you make the slightest mistake, if you do not have qualified immunity, they can come after your house, they can come after your pension, they can come after you personally. And again, it's the slightest mistake, and sometimes you do everything within the law and it's ethical and it's exactly how you were trained, but it's ugly. And it doesn't fit the optics of the politics at the time, and you get a politician that just starts to salivate on a video that they saw of you doing something, again, completely legal, completely within your training, but it just doesn't look good, and they want to exploit that. And next thing you know, you're fighting to save your home, where you keep your family and your boat and your whatever, right? Your bank account. So I personally, I would never work anywhere where there isn't qualified immunity. And what that is your actions, if they're qualified, you're immune. Do not confuse this with just some blanket immunity. There's going to be a lot of people on a certain political spectrum that are going to tell you that, you got to get rid of qualified immunity. That means that cops can do anything they want and they can't be held accountable for anything. That's bullshit. All right. So Google it, educate yourself on it, find out whatever jurisdiction you want to go work in, make sure that's something that you are comfortable with moving forward. All right. We talked about ride-alongs, get to know your new department. And I got to say, this is going to be a tip, right? I think this will help you secure a position in law enforcement. If anything, it just shows that you have respect. I don't necessarily think it's going to grease the wheels and make you go to the front of the line, but it is a good practice in my opinion, and it is something that I did in my career, so I'm going to share it with all of you. Every time I did a ride-along, and I did ride-alongs with all of these agencies, and again, they were out of state, so I would literally make sure these ride-alongs were, pre-planned, ahead of time. They knew I was coming from out of state to investigate their department, that type of thing. And I got to ride multiple times, multiple areas. I'd get a hotel room, and this is an investment for me, right? And if this is going to be your career and your new life, it should be an investment to you. And I went out on multiple ride-alongs, and then when I was done, I made sure to get the officer's business card, and if I could, the officer's direct supervisor's business card. And then after the ride-along was done, I would go back to my hotel and I'd formulate emails thanking the officer for their time, right? Thanking them for answering my questions and indulging me and taking me out on their shift, right? And I would then write a follow-up letter, email, whatever you want to call it, an email to their supervisor, letting the supervisor know that, one, I was grateful that they allowed me to do this, and two, that I was impressed with the professionalism or the tactical knowledge or whatever you were impressed with, whatever you saw and thought about this officer. You want to compliment that officer, and again, be thankful. And then I would do a little bit of Googling, right? And I'd find out who that lieutenant or who that sector sergeant was or who that watch commander was or who the captain was for that particular precinct. And I would CC that letter all the way up the chain of command so that everyone knows who you are and potentially, and everyone knows that officer is doing a great job and that, they're representing the department well. I think this is a big thing, and I don't see it happening a lot, but I think it makes you stand out, and I think it's just a good thing you should be doing in general, right? You should be doing this whether it helps you or not. The other tip I'm going to tell you, this one, it should be very obvious. It should be, but it's not, unfortunately. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of potential rookies coming in and trying to get a job in law enforcement, and I was always amazed at how this was not obvious. You need to look the part. If you are interacting with anyone on that agency that you want to get a job with, if you're interacting with anyone, you need to take the time to look the part. And what does that mean? It means dressing appropriately. It means don't look disheveled. Tuck in the shirt. Wipe off the breadcrumbs if you've got them. You know what I'm saying? Shave. Make sure you got a high and tight haircut, right? Think military, right? These are paramilitary organizations. Law enforcement is not military, but it's similar in rank and structure and so forth. So it's ironed shirt, right? Crease if you can do it. It's standing up straight. It's looking people in the eye. It's a firm handshake, and it's having some command presence, right? People need to be able to see you doing this job, especially the gatekeepers that are going to be signing yes or no. Right? They need to be able to visually, I can see this guy doing this job. I give you an example. There's going to be a lot of cops in the oral board interview that you're going into, right? There's going to be civilians. There's going to be cops. There's maybe firemen. There's going to be a water personnel. There's going to be random people in there, right? But there's going to be cops in there. And they're going to be looking at you thinking to themselves, if I'm out on the street next week or next month or next year, and this guy's hired or this gal, and I'm calling for help because there's a pile of shit and I stepped in it, and I'm calling for help, can I visually see this person here coming to my aid? If the answer is no, good luck, right? The answer needs to be yes. And a lot of that, it's not just you got to be 6'6" and look like a Viking, right? Yoked out. That's not necessarily what it is, right? I don't care if you're 5'2" and you're a female and you're just not that strong. And is she physically fit? Is she articulate? Can she communicate effectively? Does she seem like she's intelligent enough to learn how to do arrest control techniques, that she can learn how to do jujitsu and other combat skills, right? Does it look like she knows how she can whip out a baton and start chopping wood, right? You got to look the part, and I can't stress that enough, right? And it starts here, but it's also here. Can you communicate? And that type of thing. So have command presence, eye contact, firm handshake, posture, that type of thing, right? Just keep those things in mind. And if you have to, if these are new to you, you know what? Figure out a way to emulate someone you think that is that command presence you want to be. And if you have to practice in front of a mirror, I don't care. Practice in front of a mirror. Get it down. Learn it. I want to talk about articulation real quick. I'm slowing down here, and I need to speed this up. But articulation, you need to absolutely have verbal and written communication abilities. If you don't, you better start taking classes. Speech classes, writing classes, you need to learn, because everything you do is written down. You're going to be writing reports until your face is blue and you want to vomit. I'm telling you, there's a lot of writing. And you got to be able to write in an articulate, effective manner, because everything you write goes in front of a court. And you have someone in a courtroom that is a victim, right? And a lot of times that case is relying on your report and your testimony, right? Because a lot of people don't understand how much court police officers go to, right? You're a witness in every single thing that you are involved with. And again, when you're going before that court and you're sitting before a judge and prosecutors and defense attorneys, and then you may be involved in a big case where there's a huge audience and news cameras in the back. Okay, you cannot clam up. You have to walk up and get in that little box and start talking on a microphone in front of all these people, and you have to be convincing that you're screwed on tight, right? You're like, oh wow, that cop, he seemed like he really had his shit together, right? Because if it's anything less than that, and if the defense attorneys, whose only job is to make you look like a fool, if they are successful in making you look like a fool, that case is toast. And not only is that bad for you and your reputation and your career, more importantly, you may have just killed a case for that victim sitting right there looking at you, crying. That's a lot of weight for your shoulders. So you need to understand this is part of the job, right? It's not just what you saw on TV. So articulation is huge. And I think I will tell you, every officer has seen this. There are skilled articulative people, skilled in communication, and then there are those that are not. And we have seen crises, people in crisis de-escalate with good communicators, and we've seen them escalate with bad communicators. And when it escalates, it gets out of control and people end up getting hurt, cops and other people, civilians, not just bad guys, right? Things sometimes get out of control, and if you have a bad communicator, or what we call a stir stick, you get this officer that walks in there and just stirs things up and wants to get drama. It can just take a situation and just explode, and next thing you know, it's all in the news, and then there's lawsuits being filed, and it's a can of shit that you don't want to drink from. So communication's huge. I can't stress that enough. I could probably go on and on and on about that, but I'm not going to. So, all right. You must know and understand the basic laws in which for the state and the city in which you want to serve. You don't have to have them memorized, but you should have a basic understanding, okay? And you should have a basic understanding of the United States Constitution, because let me tell you something. There's going to come a point in time in your career, if you get hired on, you become a cop, there will be a point in time, mark my words, there will be a point in time where a supervisor or another officer, whether they outrank you or not, is going to ask you to do something that is not going to be legal. And it's not because they're bad, right? It's because they don't know, right? And here's a problem. If you don't know and you go do it, you're going to be in a lawsuit. And you can't go in front of a judge and go, oh, I didn't know that was frowned upon. That's not going to cut it, right? And, so you need to have a basic understanding of constitutional rights. Now, they'll go over that in any academy, but I'm going to stress that you need to have a little bit more of an expanded understanding of constitutional rights, because I think it's such a huge topic, as it should be, and you don't want to see yourself get jammed up. So there's going to come a point in time where even a supervisor that should know may not, or maybe they're emotional and they're caught up in an action. They're going to ask you or tell you or command you to do something, and it may be, hey, whoa, right? Because you are responsible for your actions. Even if you're ordered to do something, you are responsible for your actions. You may have to respectfully, maybe in private, say, hey, let me talk to you over here real quick. And, you don't want to have them lose face and call them out in front of maybe everyone else, but pull them aside and say, hey, I got some concerns and this is why. And then you can have a conversation, and maybe you're wrong. Maybe he's like, no, you're misinterpreting, and then you can make a judgment call and you can go. I'm not telling you to be insubordinate, or disrespectful. I'm just letting you know that you are responsible for your actions. And if you do something that violates someone's civil rights, then you are going to be held responsible. And that's just where this job is different than any other field, right? So, food for thought. Court's part of the job. We went over that. I'm going to conclude. So I'm less than 30 minutes. This is fantastic. I went over it quick, but I'm going to conclude with the 2 questions that you are going to be asked in any oral interview in law enforcement. I don't care if it's federal, local, state, whatever. I promise you, you are going to be asked 2 questions. I wish I could tell you all the questions you're going to be asked, but I can't. 2 questions. The first one's going to be, what have you done to prepare for a job with this department, right? With such and such PD or whatever it is, or the sheriff's office. What have you done to prepare for a job with this agency? Your answer better be something better than, I watch a lot of TV, or my cousin works here and he says it's a great job. Okay, cool. What have you done to prepare, right? So a better answer and a better reality, I'm hoping this is going to be true, a better reality is, hey, I went on, in the last 7 months, you guys allow, 2 ride-alongs per month. So I have gone on 14 ride-alongs in the last 7 months in preparation for working for this department. And on those 14 ride-alongs, I rode with officer so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And you memorize a few of those names, okay? If not all of them. And you say, I rode in this area of the city on this shift. And you let those people know that's asking the question that you invested a lot of time and in some cases money, right? Because you may have traveled. And you say, I went on every ride along I could that you guys allowed. And I got to see all parts of the city. And I got to ride with all different kinds of officers, men and women and older and younger, and some with lots of tenure, some that are new. And I got to ask them questions about what they liked, what they disliked, right? So I had a clear picture. I got to see some, what I thought was great professionalism. I got to see some great, tactics. So I know that your academy offers great tactical training. I got to see great professionalism amongst the organization in how they speak and talk to the public and how they deal with the public. I got to see that your equipment is in tip-top shape. I got to see that you are technology forward. I got to see that your radios have GPS capabilities, so that, I pull up in a car and I get out on a foot chase and I'm doing my heroic foot chase, and next thing I get hit with a freaking 2x4 or something, and I fall to the ground, and guess what? Dispatch can still see where I'm at so they can send help, right? And that's really important to me. I want to work for a department that is technology and officer first. I can see that they have the latest and greatest in other technologies to help me do my job safer and more efficiently, right? This is a big deal. And then you may even want to go into, I've had 7 months to prepare for the physical requirements that's going to be required of me to get in better physical shape for if I am offered a position. I know that, maybe in July or maybe in the fall, the academy starts, and I want to be physically prepared for that. So I've been working out 4 times a week. I've lost 25 pounds of fat. I've put on 10 pounds of muscle, whatever the case may be, right? And I'm making effort because I know this is going to be not just a job, it's going to be a lifestyle change. That's the answer, or something to that effect, is what you want to be able to give. And those are things you should be doing anyway, right? The second question they're going to ask you in every single oral board interview that I've ever been a part of, and again, I've applied with 3 agencies, all of different sizes in different states, and it was asked with every agency, and I've successfully been offered jobs with those agencies. And the question is this: can you kill? And they ask it in a different way, right? They'll ask you, hey, if this, they'll give you a scenario, whatever. But the point is, the question they're asking you is, do you have the ability within you as a human being to take another human being's life? Now, that's not an easy question. That's not even one I'm really even feel comfortable putting on a video right now, to be honest. It's a very, very personal question. And there are people that can, and there are people that cannot. And if you are in the latter group, you need to be looking elsewhere. You absolutely don't need to be looking at a job, no matter how much fun you think it's going to be or how good you're going to be at it. I don't care if you think you're going to be the best cop in the whole world, right? If you have to carry a firearm 24/7, you don't want to do that job if you don't have the ability to take another human life. Now, why is that? Why is that? I know that's a little controversial. There are going to be people that disagree. Let me tell you why I believe that is, okay? Let me justify what I just said. There's 3 entities that are going to expect you to have that ability. The first entity and the most important entity is your family. Your family is going to have an expectation that you have the ability to defend yourself up to the use and up to and including the use of deadly force. They simply have an expectation, as they should, that you come home no matter what you're faced with. Gunfight, whatever it is, right? Baseball bat coming towards your face, whatever it is. They have the expectation that you come home alive. And so you have an expectation by your family members that you have the ability, if needed, to take a human life. The second entity is going to be the agency, the actual team members you're going to be working with, the other cops, right? The other law enforcement you're going to be working with. They have an expectation that you have the ability to take a life if required, if needed, to save one of their lives, right? I can tell you, I for sure do not want to go on any call. I don't care how routine, because routine turns to shit in a snap of your fingers, right? In a blink of an eye, routine turns to unbelievable shitstorm. And I don't want to go not anywhere with another member of the police department that doesn't have that ability. I don't feel comfortable doing so. And that is just part of the job. And that is going to be an expectation of every single team member on that department. The last entity is the people you serve. The public has an expectation that you have the ability to take a human life if the situation dictates it's needed or reasonable, right? And what comes to mind is if there is a car with a terrorist or otherwise driving down a road, mowing people over, as we've seen in like New Orleans and other places around the country, the public has an expectation that you have not only the ability, but the skill to take that person's life, to end that threat and stop the bloodshed of innocent people. Right? They have that expectation. A school shooter is the same thing. Any type of mass shooter, any type of situation, maybe it's just a neighbor that's being attacked with a knife, right? They have an expectation that you take action that is reasonable to include deadly force. So I'm going to end with that. I know, ending on such a high note, but it is something very important to consider if you're considering a job in law enforcement. So I want to conclude with best of luck to all of you and all of your endeavors. I will say a badge is a ticket to the greatest show on earth. That was actually said by a captain in my academy. He held up his badge and he said, listen, this is a ticket to the greatest show on earth. But I will add, it is a journey that will take its toll and ask more from you than it will ever give. And you need to be prepared for that. And you also need to prepare your family, because you will take them along for the ride, whether you want to or not. And, for the most, it's a calling. And for those, God bless. And for everyone else that wants to work in law enforcement, God bless. Stay safe. Watch your six. And I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.